All right, this is our post-conference. How are you today, Sheila?
I'm doing very well.
Good, good. I just wanted to, have this meeting with you to go back and reflect on some of the things we spoke about in reference to the in-school suspension and your interaction with the children, and perhaps getting a better uh, feedback from the parents with their kids' progress, and some of the things we spoke about in reference to ideas of, you know, dealing with the kids and trying to get them to, you know, focus and eliminate their, redundancy in coming in the in-school suspension. How did some of those things go that we discussed?
Well, after we had the discussion, I did try to implement a few of the suggestions that you talked about, but I find it to be very, very difficult working with the particular group of kids that keep repeating the in-school suspension. It was very, very difficult to get them involved in a collaborative approach in the classroom assignment that I gave them. I find that many of them lack the interest in the assignment, or they simply do not want to get involved in any activities when they come in school suspension, because they still view it as a punishment, and they don't think that they wanted to reward us as teachers in terms of doing any assignment, because if they were there for in-school suspension, they weren't going to do any work. So based upon that, I did try to get some sort of collaborative learning. I did implement, I thought games were a better approach, like some of the suggestions you talked about, to reinforce their math skills, their basic math skills. So we did that. I find that they were very interested in the games. Of course, there were card games. I think computer games would be much better
Mm-hmm.
because they're more into computer and I think they're more fun.
Mm-hmm.
The card games were pretty good. I think after about 10-15 minutes, however, they lose interest because the card mat games are not as interactive as a computer game. I was able to get them in a group session, in
Okay.
small groups around the table.
Mm-hmm.
There were about 12 of them. So I did divide them in groups of 4 and did implement the card games. I think that worked, but that worked only for a short time, and then it was hard to get their attention. It was hard to keep order again in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty challenging.
Mm-hmm. Well, as we discussed in our pre-conference, having the kids pass the HESPA is our number one priority with their math and their language arts. We want them to at least get a minimum of 200, they want that 200 score minimally. And, for the juniors and the seniors who will have to retake it in October, I find a lot of them are coming into ISS, and we want to kind of get them geared on that. If they have a problem in the classroom from a disciplinary perspective, then we want to at least have them being proactive and productive in the classroom and school suspension, focusing on those criterias. When we discuss separating some of the kids, getting them into groups, and having them work jointly, what did you think about that? Was that a strategy that was useful with a classroom of 30, taking them and separating them in groups? Would you find that effective?
I did. I did find that effective, and sometimes the in-school suspension, as you know, it varies from time to time. So sometimes we do have 30, and sometimes we do have 12 or
Mm-hmm.
15 or
Mm-hmm.
20. So I try to separate them according to their group and according to their interests.
Mm-hmm.
However, I find it very hard as an in-school suspension teacher. I think it's kind of a too much pressure
Mm-hmm.
on me, because I think their teachers should be doing more with them in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time they get to me in
Mm-hmm.
school suspension, I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have to do so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a hard to get the approach you really want me to do,
Mm-hmm.
even
Mm-hmm.
though I'm trying my best to implement it, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not their teacher, so I don't have the same credibility with them.
Mm-hmm.
I am looking at some of the HESPER MAT
Mm-hmm.
emphasis that we
Mm-hmm.
talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said before, I told you I really can't do that in curriculum format with them,
Mm-hmm.
because that psychology don't work with the in-school suspension
Mm-hmm.
children.
Mm-hmm.
They are repeat students in
Yes,
terms of
yes.
they have behavior issues, so it's very hard to get them to focus, it's very hard to get them to listen. That's why they come to me. However, I am using the strategy you suggested. I find it better to pair them in groups and to get them to focus. But sometimes even pairing them in group is kind of a hard because one group sometimes tends to interrupt another group. They lose interest after 10 minutes. They start talking, and it becomes all disruptive again. So I think part of the things that I have implemented the strategy you talked about. That's number one. That's what you're asking. Number two, it's very difficult to keep them focused on the goals that you want in terms of achieving the scores for HESPER. Number three, I think the teachers in their classroom should be doing a much better jobs with them. Number four, I would not like to have to see them keep repeating the in-school suspension program because these children become very difficult to deal with after a while. However, I still went ahead and I did implement the math game, like I said to you before. And I know that it might be, like you said, in terms of there are no computers in the school suspension program, and because they physically have to be in a location and they're not in a computer lab, I would like to see that the math games that you suggested as a teacher, which would be better off for me, is if we could place them in an environment that has computer programs and computer math programs directly from the HESPER, because they are such a thing. I mean, I don't know how that will work. I don't know how you can go about doing that, but as a teacher, that would be what I would like to see. But it's hard, I'm not going to lie about that, and it's very difficult working with them, but I think so far I have accomplished the objective that I tell them. They have to be productive, they have to work in small group, they have to focus on what they're doing, and we do have a goal to achieve that when they come to my class, the in-house suspension program, that they have to be engaged in meaningful learning. So I think we have accomplished that.
Okay.
As opposed to technique, I think we can work at that.
So am I to understand that having resources with computers and math software would assist and getting the kids to be motivated to focus on those HESPA scores?
Exactly, I think
Okay.
so. I think that if we can move from the card games, and we can move to a more interactive, not only does it have them to get focused, but what it does, I can control the group better. I can have a little bit more one-on-one learning. Then I can have a little bit more cooperative learning, which is your approach and what you want. I can have a little bit more of that. We can do a little bit more best practice in terms of sharing. We can do a little bit more teacher guidance, more the teacher interaction. That will give me a little bit more control. And I think in terms of the quality that you're looking for, in terms of it will also help them mentally to train them towards passing the math and getting the score that you require. So I think that would be much better for the type of learning that you're trying to take place in the in-school suspension program, because I'm telling you, it's very difficult. It's not easy.
Right.
And, I've been incorporating the programs that you talked about.
Okay, so I'll take those resolutions and make note of them, and we'll definitely follow up on another conference sometime in November. However, we must remain mindful that a lot of the students who are attending in-school suspension are in self-contained classrooms, and we do have quite a bit of special ed students. So
I am aware of that.
Yes.
And I do try to accommodate those special eds, which is why I'm saying that we need a little bit more resource. That would help me out for that cooperative learning.
Okay, all right. I'll definitely make note of that, and I'll try and see if I could get facilities to make sure that those equipments are available to assist in, getting the kids to a target area of, achieving some of these scores, and at the same time we can address some of the behavior issues, which is why they're there. And have you had any thoughts about my ideas on behavior? You have another person in the classroom with you, I'm sure, who's able to walk around, and do you think that's effective? Do you think you need more staff, perhaps?
Yeah, because I think the staff should varies in terms of the ratio. You know, like I say, sometimes we have 30, sometimes we have 15, sometimes we have 12. That definitely helps, and she's definitely very cooperative. She knows what we're doing. She tried to keep the groups together. She tried to separate them when they're talking. She tried to keep the focus. So that helps a lot. We can use another person because it would really help the focus to, you know, to be a lot better than what it is now. But yes, that helps. As far as the behavior issue, I try to deal with that as much as I can. But I'm not there ready to deal with that. You know, I'm really there to help them to be useful and have some learning to take place within that span that they're there for. So of course I have to deal with the issue, but you know, Miss Karen, you know, deals with the disciplinary issue. So I can really focus on, you know, some of the things you want me to do.
Well, you as the lead teacher, that is certainly your objective, and that's where we want you to remain focused at.
Sure.
And you know, you're doing an excellent job. And
Thanks.
I just, you know, I want to say that, you know, I'm looking forward to our next meeting, and I'm sure that there'll be more progress. I appreciate that you implemented the strategies that I suggested, and I've definitely taken into account some of the resolutions that you think will be useful in
Sure.
order to us getting to our target. I want to thank you very much, Sheila, and I'll be seeing you again
Thanks.
in November, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you
I'll
for
see
your
you in
time.
November.
Okay.